you might have seen this conversation on visual memory across time, tracing the evolution of Rwandan art and the symbolic memory. Is a conversation with Dolph Banza. Dolph Banza is not a guest or is not a new at in library because he has participated before in our virtual conversation during the launch of Gustave Mukurarinda's book. My name is Omar Ndizeye, founder of Inkuru Library. Inkuru Library was created to contribute to the conversation, research, and reflection on memorization of the 1994 genocide against Tutsi in Rwanda through storytelling and existing academic conversation. Today's conversation with Dolph Banza it fits in his background because Dolph Banza is a Rwandan visual artist, illustrator. His work has been featured in different events, but also publications as well. Recent conference of Fédération Internationale Automobile, which took place in Kigali, Rwanda. The book of Claver Ilako's That Child Is Me, or our recent project that we are writing, myself and Gabriel Cohen, on a fiction story entitled Among Their Massacre, are the few examples of Dolph's work. Dolph has besides being an artist, he is also a researcher on the evolution of Rwandan art from pre-colonial period, colonial period, and the contemporary art work of Rwandans and at least people who are interested in Rwandan art. With that, let's welcome Dolph. Dolph, take us through your journey, your artistic journey, your imagination, and your reflection.
Thank you, Omar. It's a pleasure to be here. So, yes, Dolph Banza is my name. I'm a visual artist. I've been doing this for, almost 15 years now. I created a company called Inksten at some point in my journey where I got to train different artists, and then we also got to help individuals and institutions to express, their views or, their activity using design and illustration. So, yes, next page. So, this presentation, I'm going to take you through my universe, and this is a reflection of things I like and which, are recurrent into my creations. I very much like history. I like science. I like drawing, I like teaching, I like weaving. So all these elements are the topics I really like to touch when I'm creating visuals. Next. Yes, so I've always been wanting to express myself. So most of the things I'm going to be showing are going to be, let's say, some personal project, but also, some professional, let's say, commissions from different institutions. So this is back in 2000 when I was exploring Kigali, my city where I was born and raised, through different artworks. It was mostly during the COVID times. I really had a lot of time to kind of create things of my own because there was nothing much else to do. but it kind of helped me reconnect really with my childhood through these kind of creations. Next. Now, I call this a project from heaven because this was like a very key moment in my artistic journey when I started working on this project. I was called to participate in a multidisciplinary project which involved Rwandan artist and a German museum where we got to express ourselves through different kind of art forms like dance, poetry, um, visual and theater. Next. So my part in this project was to study pre-colonial Rwandan object, which had been taken by Germans. And I really didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew that I was interested in history, in objects, especially artifacts. But it's only when I got there that I started really kind of realizing that the best I can do was to create some blueprint. Next page was to create some blueprints for these objects because most of them are no longer in Rwanda. For example, these ones are not known. I don't think you can find, 50 people who know about these objects. So that's the problem with being colonized twice is you get robbed twice and you literally remain with nothing. Next. For objects are called imitemeri. So these are covers. They cover milk pots and they are very elongated and the top of the object, you can see that the weavers try to mimic the horns, but also these imitemeri were very diverse. I'm only showing two, but there are so many shapes, so many types, so many patterns, they were so interesting to study. So the next page. Yeah, next page again. So this is where I was working on this project. It was way more than just capturing them aesthetically, but it was much more of a breakdown. I was lucky to do technical studies in my formal education. I don't come from an art education, so I did technical studies where I got to study technical drawing, and this came handy when I was studying this object. For me, it was about creating a blueprint that different creators can use in their creations. And creating from our ancestors is way more than just a fantasy. It's actually a way to reconnect with our original, artistic expressions. Next page. You have a breakdown, a geometrical breakdown of this object here. It's very hard to understand the intricacy of an object if you do not sit down and really draw it, study it. So you get to understand how beautiful it is. You get to see how harmonious it is. You get to see how balanced it is. So it fits all the rules that, modern designers use today. And to me, it was mind-blowing to see that there is the weavers hold such an interesting kind of knowledge that most people don't really see, because usually when you look at this kind of object, you just see an object. But for someone like me, I go through, I see beneath, I can see the intricacy of the geometric, shapes. I can see so many things that a non-designer cannot see. But also the thing about this object is that they just speak for themselves. They are really very, very interesting to study. Next page. Object here. I'm trying to study. I try not to draw them as they look because they are very old. They've been twisted, things have been, these are very, very old objects. I think older than I think maybe 150 years old for each one. They are well conserved, but they were even taken from Rwanda. And they have been used before. So that's why they seem old. But most of these objects are very rare. Of course, I know that the Rwandans in the group are wondering if these are Rwandans. And I feel like we can recreate these objects, but also we can, we can get inspiration from all this information that they hold to really tap into our originality. Next page. So before I was just drawing, capturing things, but without really having a theory of myself, of, my own artistic style only emerged after that project. That's when I really started combining, traditional Rwandan patterns with, illustrations to kind of create, to kind of express something. All these two images are a representation of balance and, and connection as well. Next. These are more of these images that we have here. So there is a very, very interesting discoveries that I get to learn about when I'm exploring pre-colonial Rwanda. So what we have here on the left side, we have Amayugi, which sound is really high pitch, in terms of frequency. And then you have the drum on the lower side. So if you check Amayugi and the drum is much more of a low frequency kind of sound. So you play the drum and it sometimes sound monotonous. And what they did is to have something else with a high pitch that can complement the low pitch of the drum. And in music, in vibration science, that is something, people who study music, they know what this means. And it's very, very interesting to see that we actually had science, but it was not Cartesian. It was more of an intuitive kind of science. But all the scientific aspect that you find in the rituals, in the objects, they get very interesting when you really open your mind to look at these things differently. Next page. So this box, it contains lids. These are milk pot lids. Imitemeri yibyansi, for those who understand. You can see that each one has a particular type of patterns. And to me, when I found this box online somewhere on Pinterest, and I was very, very amazed. I kept finding things that can no longer be found in Rwanda. And to me, this is like a very, very important image for me because there is so much in this picture. There is so much science, there is so much craft, there is so much history. This is also a pre-colonial, you know, all these are pre-colonial. They are somewhere in a museum in some Western country. So the next project I'm going to show you, I pitched this box because they came to me trying to, to create some kind of stage background inspired by Rwanda. And I pitched this, and let's see what came out of that. Next page. So now from my different visual studies about Rwanda, now I started creating things that that also kind of took like a mainstream kind of turn. So this was a stage background for an event called Move Africa with Kendrick Lamar. And the box that I showed you on the previous page is the one which inspired the background you see here. So to me, it's not about taking things as they look and just recreate them, but it's more about, mixing them, adding color, because we are no longer living in the past. Things have changed. We can print things, we can put things on screens. So we have so many ways to kind of, display artistic creations. And to me, I feel like it's very important to incorporate modern elements like, vivid colors so that they can interact well with light, especially when it comes to entertainment. You really want to have something very, very vivid. Usually, historically, Rwandans would only use a limited palette of colors, but I take the same patterns and then, kind of mix colors and, yeah, modernize them in a certain way. Next page. What you have here is the original artwork that was printed for Move Africa. So you can see that now it's much more obvious without all the light that you had on the previous page. You can see the intricacy, the patterns, the way they connect, the way they interact. It's beautiful to see, and for me it was such a pleasure to be able to portray things I'm obsessed about on a big scale like the Move Africa event. Next page. And then after Move Africa came something else called the FIA. It was a Formula One, an automobile event, which is really international, but the last edition took place in Rwanda. And as part of what they wanted on the screens was some kind of abstract background that can be inspired by Rwanda. And I'm showing you the mood board here, the things we have to go through for such an artwork like the previous one or even the one we are going to see to be produced. It takes like 40 emails, it takes like 10 meetings back and forth because first I have to show them my intentions, I have to show them my inspirations, and sometimes they object or they agree. They have also to provide some of the resources. Like the image you have on the right is the color palette that they provided. They wanted this dark green and gold to be the colors that we were going to use for that background. I think this green is from a stone, some kind of a crystal called malachite, and that was the main inspiration. So I wanted to show different things, like, I wanted to show the progress Rwanda was making in different, fields, but we ended up, let's say, focusing more on the touristic aspect of Rwanda, the natural beauty, than other things. So not everything end up in the final design. Next page. A sketch that I produced, I sit down on my iPad and start drawing, things. And you can see that all these elements that reflect different parts of Rwanda, the topography, we have the forest, we have the different animals. Going back to the patterns, going back to the object studies that I got to do, as part of my research. So usually these geometrical patterns are kind of interacting with each other. To me, I found a way to kind of connect my images using these patterns, instead of just keeping them, instead of keeping them as just abstract patterns. Now this is me combining, illustration with geometry. Can you go back to the next page? So out of this rough sketch, I get some feedback, and then I get to adjust a certain number of things. You will see that in the final image, what we have in the center here, showing the volcanoes and the canopy, we ended up removing anything that was, let's say, artificial. Go to the next. Static version of the image that we ended up animating, because I also worked with the French team. The FI has an in-house, creative department. So I created this image. I sent it over layered, which means each individual, let's say, element is on its own layer. So you can actually get to move it and create some animation out of it. So this was the static version of it. And you can see how the malachite gold palette worked on the sketch. Next. And it's one thing to look at a design when it's on a screen, but it's also another thing to see it in a real space with light and music and people. So it's so many layers, so many form of expression. So I really like to see the work being alive here, where I get to see the reaction of people and see how much it contributes to the event. Next page. Then came Move Africa, the second edition. The second edition was with John Legend. We went with the same formula, which is patterns, but I wanted something a little bit more subtle and always inspired by the weaving. So this is how it looks when it's done after 50 emails. Next page. How it looks when we try it on a 3D stage model, because things need to be tested in so many at different levels. Next page. This is how the experience look now, from the design, from all the stages that we have to go through, let's say internally. Now this is how it really radiates life when it's combined with light and people and music. So it was, yes, it was a very, very beautiful moment for me as a creative, obsessed kind of guy, to see that people are responding to things that I'm showing to them, because I think I am the very, very fast to really explore Rwandan geometry at a deeper level and be able to use it visually. It's been explored in other fields, but in a visual stage background, I'm really a pioneer of this, and I get to see more and more people do the same, which to me is the goal, because it's very hard to be original if you are copying other people's things. Yet our history is rich, very, very rich. Visually, the Rwandan culture is very, very rich. It's infinite. Next. Other than just creating, things for entertainment or, conventions, there is also a part of me which kind of addresses, the 1994, the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. And this is a very, very sensitive topic. I've worked with Omar and Gabriel, who are in this, call, and we know how much we have to, to really find ways to express sensitive topics without, let's say, shocking. It's a very, very tricky kind of way to talk, kind of game, I would say. So I very much like this image. There was a picture which used to be, circulated like 10 years back, of this soldier saving someone from the, how do you call it, Gishanga? From the swamp.
Papaya swamp.
So, and yes, and the soldier was holding the gun and also, handing the hand. So this was a very, very inspirational image for me. It's for a long time. I've lost that image now. I even try to look for it, but it's been a while. But I keep recreating this image in so many ways, because it really means a lot. This is the moment Rwanda was reborn, and I feel like this is the best image to capture, one of the best ways to capture that renaissance. Next. Yes, this is also a very interesting image, part of a children's book project I'm working on with Omar and Gabriel. So this is one of the images. I think the book should be out soon. It's a very, very interesting story that we spent years working on. And this image also captures the moment where people would gather around fire. There is a moment where we would gather in different neighborhoods, around fire, Kwibuka. Now Kwibuka has evolved, because, we have to move on with different ways of Kwibuka. But this was a very, very key moment that I thought I could, revive in this story. Sometimes during Kwibuka, I get to create an image, depending on the inspiration that what I feel. And this was the image on the right was there was a time there was this theme about izina ryawe ntirizazima Mari, which to me also connect with fire. Every time fire as an element, when fire is maintained, it shows that there is people around it. If you don't maintain fire, it can go off and fade. But fire, it's really showing that we are here, and it's used in so many ways. You can see on the left with candles, on the right, this is the fire at the memorial. Of course, I did some exaggeration here in terms of size, but that's what art does. Next. I thought it was a key moment. It was a big event. And I was very much inspired by the performance at the stadium. So right after, I went and started drawing, creating these images. I like the holding hand aspect of the image on the left, the unity. I like the light. I like the dancing on the right image. It's really every time there is something key, something that I feel, I really try to express it with my art, because I feel like that's the best way I have to express myself. Next. A couple of book covers for different people. Yes, writing about memory transmission, writing about their personal experiences. And sometimes it's literally figurative, as you have on the left. And then sometimes I try to also be a bit abstract and use some patterns to express. I think the image on the right side is self-explanatory, given the title it has. So it's not easy to get this kind of inspiration, but sometimes when you do, you get to create something this interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dolph Banza, for your presentation, your knowledge. Obviously, artists are people who spend much time in the imagination. And thank you so much also for taking us through your imagination and reflection on traditional Rwandan art and its evolution, but also in your creation today. I have been trained as a teacher at the Kigali Institute of Education back then, before it became National University of Rwanda. We used to say that when you teach a student and they don't have questions, it's either they don't understand what you've taught them, or you wrongly did your class presentation. Today's presentation, Dolph, left me with so many questions. That means it was a very good presentation. I saw some heart emojis and claps from our colleagues here. We are with Sandrine Hunda, who is in Canada. She's a poet. Gabrielle Cohen, who works on memory. We went to the same university at Binghamton University, but she's also working in a museum field, as our work is part of genocide prevention. We are also honored to be with Dr. Zoe Norwich from England, who is a researcher and a writer, but also Dr. Zoe have done a lot of book reviews, especially reviewing memoirs of survivors. We are with Sandrine Mugenga, my friend from Johns Hopkins University, where she's doing a PhD, also researching on resistance and memorization in post-genocide Rwanda. Though we are very few to have a conversation, then, as you can understand, I have too many questions. But please, if among you there is someone who has a question, you can ask and you can tell us and ask your question. But before you come in, Dolph, you mentioned that your interest was the artwork of Banyarwanda people. Here I have to mention the difference between Banyarwanda and Rwandans, according to Muhammad Mamdan, a writer and a researcher who is now at the Columbia University. He told us in his book, When the Victims Become Killers, that Banyarwanda means all people in the Great Lakes region who have a heritage of Rwanda or Rwandans, those who live in Uganda, Eastern DRC, and the other neighboring countries. But Rwandans then means the people who live in the boundaries, today's boundaries of Rwanda. So allow me to use the Banyarwanda by imagining that everyone there then has this pre-colonial conception of art. You mentioned that they are objects collected by Germans who came to Rwanda before. Have you had a chance to know who were they and how these objects were collected, and where are they kept in Germany?
The objects are in different museums because sometimes it depends on where they, usually I know that there are some objects in a museum called MARKK in Hamburg where I was, but there is also a number of museums in Berlin which hold, Rwandan artifacts. It's way more than object. They also have human remains. They have around 1,000 skulls, of Rwandans, which they took to study and they still keep them. We've also been working on a project where we try to address that, but it's been very, very difficult in so many ways. But yeah, so usually all the objects that were sent to me, because I had to pick 10 from which I had to study. So they had like some kind of label, which has like, the origin. Sometimes they will write a province or something, or a name of the place. But where they need to show how they obtain it, they say it's a gift. So most of these objects are gifts, yes. So to them, but yeah, but we all know that they are not gifts. They were taken either by force or influence.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, the reason why I'm asking this question is that, as I mentioned, we are with researchers. This conversation is going to be uploaded on YouTube. I'm assuming that some other people who are interested in Rwandans are going to follow. Probably they might need to do further research and trace some of these objects, according to different curiosity they have. And thank you for sharing with us. We can keep that these are gifts to them, and let's probably see as the research evolve how people will know the condition under which those gifts were given to them, but also studying them, keeping this knowledge in on both sides, because it's now heritage of German, of course, because they keep them, and of Rwanda, of course, of humanity, because different researchers are going to be interested in that. Have you tried to visit places in Rwanda, these places where they mentioned that they, got them? Have you had the chances to go to these places?
There is very few information about the German colonization, because after they were here for a short time, and then there was a Belgian colonization, which you have a lot of information for. But anything that touches the German is very kind of hard to research. But about the skulls, since we are still on trying to work on that project, we know the region from which they took the skulls. And actually, one of the reasons why the museums are not allowing us access is because they say that only a family member can have access to that, right? And it's very hard to trace.
So understandably, it's going also be part of your work, or other researchers on, especially on representation. I know Zoe has been participating in a lot of discussions like this. Sandrine as well. Gabi. I know when I mentioned Sandrine here, I mentioned Mujenga, but also Sandrine, the poetess, also have been doing a lot of events around the memory as well. So thank you very much for helping us to trace at least these roots of the arts and where they are today. Now let's move from how this artwork were taken, especially when you are mentioning the history, their history. I can see in your face there is their emotions. But let's move to something a little bit scientific. What do you think was an inspiration to these Rwandans who are creating these images that are kept in German? Were there some writings in German museums which talk about their inspiration? Or in general, why do Rwandans were interested in art before they met Europeans whom we know that they have a very advanced scientific knowledge, including artwork.
So even the word art, we are using it today, but it's weaving is really, it was not considered as, it's not called art. It's something you learn. It's something that everyone does. And it's predominantly female, right? So there are different types of weaving, actually. Weaving smaller objects is predominantly female. And when weaving takes a different turn in architecture, and now it becomes a male kind of activity. So, and it's all weaving, right? From the agaseke to the house, it's really all weaving. The difference is the size, right? So that's how you find similar shapes, similar patterns, but at different scales. I think weaving is something each girl would do, from maybe 10, you would go to a weaving school where you get to learn how to weave. Actually, the best weaver would be known across the hills, right? And while I was in the museum, we got to the I had the chance to look at the weaving through a microscope, some random object, and then the lady who works in the museum, the one in charge of the that aspect of the museum, she was very impressed by Rwandan weaving. So many people weave, it's from across East Africa to South Africa. There are so many types of weaving, and we all use, let's say, harmonious shapes and geometry, but from one region to another, you get a different type of geometry. So for Rwanda, the circle is really something. It's very predominant. Even the circle also being it symbolizes femininity in so many ways. We can explore that topic on another day. But usually the circle is going to be feminine, and the square is going to be masculine. So usually you find the combination of all these things, but especially in Rwanda, the circle is really the main shape. So that's why the house is circular, the fence is circular, and then they also have different ways of intersecting circles and creating beautiful combination in architecture, and then placing the house right in the middle. Usually that field is called geometry, but it is a particular type of geometry where you don't need, let's say, formula to define it, and then it becomes kind of an intuitive type of geometry. So it's something for every day, but the thing about pre-colonial Rwanda is that each daily object would have ornaments. Because it's an object, it's sacred, you use it every day, so you need to keep it beautiful in some way. So you have engraving, you have weaving, you have some burning, but it's very rare to see an object which doesn't have ornament. So it's life for everyday life. I mean, it's art for everyday life.
So from what you are saying, we are understanding that there is no formula. Of course, as many African societies, there were no writing culture. Rwandans were also the same. But you are mentioning something very interesting. First of all, the interest how do you call them? In something beautiful done, perfectionism, but also the intuition. Would you think that, would you say that that was the characteristic of Rwandan, pre-colonial Rwandan art, or it's something else?
It's not exclusive to Rwanda, but different, let's say, people create different things. If you go to the western part of Africa, you will find mask. From the west, the far west to Congo, you have mask, and then when you reach Rwanda, there's no mask. Now, because we are more focused on the weaving and they are more focused on the woodwork. So yeah, but they also have ornaments, they also have weavings. So it's not really exclusive to us in so many ways. You mentioned something about the what those kind of patterns mean. So it's geometry is an abstract language, really. It's very abstract. There is no single meaning. You can find so many meanings depending on how you are exploring it, right? So it's not really. But one thing you find in this kind of geometry is its balance, its order, its harmony. So all these are universal principles that hold things together that also a society needs to embrace in order to live well. So by also creating these patterns and having them all around, you actually, they kind of rewire your thinking. When you see harmony, it kind of rewires your subconscious, and it can create harmony inside you. That's what imagery does. You can create an image that can create discord, but you can also choose to create an image that creates harmony. So they are all, it really goes beyond just mere aesthetic. They are somehow some kind of glue to the society.
Oh, great. And of course, one can understand that some of these small details that we find, without knowing, I think today is also, we find that, for example, Sandrine is a poet. You might find that she never done a school, she never had, she never goes to literature school to study that. We saw some of the inheritance, some of the naturally talented people who, come up with art, especially, let's say, making duseke, agaseke, or baskets, and all of this. Um, uh, Thank you for mentioning that there is this element of intuition, but of course, the perfectionism which was inherited from generations to generations. So from this, questions about art, we are remaining with, I think we are remaining with 35 minutes. But let me ask you one question or two questions. Then I will also let my colleagues who want to intervene and ask you questions or do some reflections. Uh, you are mentioning the inspiration. I know in one of our conversation which we had before, you mentioned nature as an inspiration to Rwandan art. Would you like to say more about it? And if you can, combine that by, if you can extend that question to where today's contemporary artwork have evolved, and what are the difference between today's artworks and, this art you are mentioning before Rwandans encountered not only Europeans, but also Arabs from Zanzibar. I think people forget that Rwandan was influenced by different cultures, including Zanzibaris or Arabic culture from eastern part of Africa.
So you mean nature as an influence to artistic expression?
Mm-hmm. And it's two questions. One, and how that today's contemporary art reflect this traditional art we are seeing. What's the difference and what remained?
I think the tribal life is very spiritual. So now you spend your whole life, looking at learning from the plants, the forest, the animals, all the elements, the water, the sun. So even when you build the house, the entrance has to face the sunrise, right? Because you want the sun rays to hit the house in the morning. That's the first thing you want. So there is also the way you place, your the way you place things is going to follow the cycles of nature. And most of these patterns also can somehow follow the patterns of nature. In nature, you have these principles that I was talking about, like balance, harmony, stability, all these things, you get to learn them from nature. So that's nature is part of everyday life, but also they learn to respect nature when they want to craft a drum, right? You need the right tree to cut. You need the right skin to use. You need the right, whatever you use to make the ropes. So but also, when you cut the tree for the drum, it's a whole ritual. It's a whole ritual, right? You have to kind of ask for forgiveness for cutting the tree, but the drum is also needed for other things. So nature is an inspiration for everyday things, including crafts and, and the ways of the society live. Today, there is very the way we create today is kind of different because we do not necessarily understand most of what we are doing, even intuitively or not even intellectually. We can actually mimic things because when you have tools, they give you that circle. You don't need to think about it. You don't need to think about what the circle represents because it's in your software. And sometimes you end up creating things, but without really tapping into the very essence of what you are doing. So, and there is a little bit of disconnect, especially for countries which have been decolonized because at some point there was this colonial interruption, which interrupted the spiritual life, the social life, the artistic expression, everything was interrupted. So it's not easy to catch up until you really have the willingness to go beyond and back and really try to find relevant information. This is why, let's say, I see a lot of designers, I see a lot of architects, but there's no common language when you see Kigali, the way it's built. It's different influence from France, from Belgium. It's a cocktail of things. Yet we can have our own architecture that you can tell it's Rwandan if you see it from a picture. But for such a movement to exist, it's gonna take some people who are willing to tap into history to learn. Usually, the colonial mentality is that you look back at your own history with some kind of despise. It's like there is nothing interesting there. They didn't have science and writing, so what am I to find? But there is a lot of science, there is a lot of wisdom, there is a lot of design, and there is a lot of poetry, there is a lot of music. We just need to wake up on that and reconnect.
Yeah, thank you for introducing my last question in this session of me and you before our colleagues comes in. You are introducing something that I found in my research. I visited along with my colleagues, Professor Stephanie Wolf and Dr. Namari Dobia. We visited the 120 genocide memorials. And not all these memorials were built by the same person. We have a Kigali Genocide Memorial that was built by James Smith and Stephen Smith. We have memorials in Karongi. Here I mean the Cicero Genocide Memorial, or for example, Ngoma, which is former Mugonero in Karongi, now Nyange, now Musanze, former Justice House, built by Vedat Ngarambe, who is a Rwandan architect. At Kigali Genocide Memorial, you find also some imaginations, different contributors as well. And the same issues you are mentioning also exist in the memorization of the 1994 genocide against Tutsi in Rwanda, especially in the building memorials. And uh, uh, maybe let me not reveal a lot about our research, but let me ask you a question, because it's go, these are some of the things, these are some of our findings. But why do you think Rwandans in general should be aware of the evolution of Rwandan art when they are conceiving policies and the practices of memory of the 1994 genocide against Tutsi in Rwanda? And if you can extend to that question to the non-Rwandans, the researchers and the practitioners, what do you think they need to understand the evolution of Rwandan culture? You are muted, Dolph.
Um, there is something amazing which has already existed, to what you are asking. There is, you take Gachacha, for example, right? That's an instance where we are going back in history to use a very ancient method to solve a problem that we have. So that's just one example. So imagine how many gachachas that we have, that we have not tapped into, that are there and that can serve us. So that's just a concrete example of why we need to use history in order to know where in order to know where you are going, you need to know where you are coming from.
Mm. Especially that memorization are connected in the, it's not only about remembering, it's also about healing, resilience, rebuilding the social fabric. There are a lot of, you mentioned the interruption. The interruption, it was not only caused when it comes to Rwanda, the interruption is not only caused by colonial project, but also genocide against Tutsi also disrupted the society deeply. For example, Rwandans used to, here I'm using the words, I'm paraphrasing Esther Mujawayo, whom Zoe knows. She liked to give example for how, for example, the greetings of Banyarwanda, Girabana, which is a wish to you to have a family of children, Girumugabo, have a husband, which was a Rwandan traditional wish. It was at least in the generation after genocide very hard to use it, because you are not sure if a person you are in front of you has these people or have lost them. The fact that you are practicing this traditional culture, then you are causing a shock. So I just wanted to add on what you are saying. But of course, through expression, culture. Art is for expression of wounds, of emotions. Art is for everything you mentioned. Then there is a need to really understand that. Is there any question, a reflection? Me and Dolph took a lot of time, so we still have, we are now 37 minutes. We still have a 23 minutes to finish. Is there a question, a reflection that you guys need to ask? There is no need to use a message chat room. You can just open your mic, tell us about yourself, and then what is your question?
Okay, I'm gonna go on. Do you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Sandrine.
Yeah, so as the Omar said, my name is Sandrine, Sandrine Rwanda, because we are two Sandrines here. So I'm a poet, and first of all, I really congratulate you, Dolph, because you're doing an amazing job. You are very talented, and it's really beautiful to see the beauty of Rwanda through art. I was getting even emotional seeing all those images that we don't even have, that belong to us. My first question was to ask you, where did you find those objects that we don't see? And when you gave us the answer, it was from Germany. I was like, it's really sad, because it's ours. It should be ours. Like, we should get back them to us where they belong. And seeing all those wars, all that work inspired by those little objects, beautiful objects that can be like on a bigger picture, as we saw on all those works you had to, or all those things you had to work on. It's really beautiful, and I was impressed to see the connection between the visual arts and the poetry. All this, like the art in Rwanda, it's something that we can't really explain. It comes from within, and Rwanda has always been like that. Rwanda is a poetic land. The everyday life is poetic, and we can see that all those objects are the everyday reflection of what is Rwanda, like the beauty of Rwanda. So all that I see is like how we can like always connect those different arts. I'm really happy to see that we are getting there. When I see the project, like the Kwibuka project, and we have like the voices, and you are there, you have the image. So this is really something that touches me very, very well. I'm so my French is my first language, so if I miss words, bear with me.
I know, Sandrine, if it was a French, I would be lost. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, French is my second, because Kinyarwanda is my first, as always. So do you do like a live performance with let's say with theater, if there are people who are just doing poetry, or do you do what they call spectacle vivant, or live performances? You have like to be there if it's something, because that was really beautiful when I saw that. If it's something, is this something that can be moved, or you really have to be there and to do it live with the people? When I saw the lights, the thing, like the red thing that we saw, how you do all that? Are you like at the place, and you have those people who are doing live performances? How do you do your thing? Is it like something that if you have like to have the idea, and you make that work of yours, and if the person has to go to present elsewhere, is it possible to go with your work and his work, or you have to be there at the same place? That was my question.
So yes, okay. Let me know if I think I think I got it right. But when you talk about live performance, because I'm a visual artist, so usually I'm sitting in my studio doing the work, and after that, it can be sent to print or it can go somewhere on a screen. But I've also done events where I would sit with my tools, connect to a screen and draw live, right? And people see how things are coming together. So that is the spectacle aspect of my work, which I don't get to do much, but I've done a couple of those. Yes. And when you talk about poetry and weaving and dance and drumming and architecture, I get to study Rwanda, the Rwandan essence through those things, right? It's a historian really can maybe choose. Some people, they like to say that this information is lost, we will never retrieve it, but information never get lost, actually. When information does not have a host, it kind of compress itself and wait for someone who is going to be open for it to reveal itself. So I get to learn a lot about Rwanda through objects. I get to learn a lot through the architecture, through the dance, through the drumming, through the craft. There is a bit of information that are encoded into those elements, and that's also a window for someone who wants to study, Rwanda. I'm sure you know about Nyirarumaga.
Yes,
The
Nyirarumaga,
Yarumag. Yeah.
yes.
she's the
So
founder.
yes,
She's the
so there
founder
is.
of Dolph. I think
Yeah.
Nyirarumaga, she's the
So there
founder.
is really, like, poetry becomes your window to the past, visuals become my window to the past, and then something else for someone else. Yeah, it's a very, very interesting way of researching history.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Gabi, let me ask you to unmute, please. Can you try? Can you try to unmute Gabi and have your intervention? Or can you try to get out of the room and then come back? That would be great. Oh, you say you are in the public.
Omar, I think I can read the question.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. Can you read the question in the chat?
What? Let me see. Gabrielle, I'm still seeing. Okay. The
I
question,
see.
I say, I'm unable to unmute, so will use chat. Omar and Dolph, thank you so for this presentation and the conversation. Dolph, it has been a pleasure, a collaboration and the following along as your artistic career has blossomed. Question, how much of your work holds deeply personal, cultural, and historical meaning? How do you navigate centering these human elements in a field where the technical processes require your attention?
That's a good question. That's a very good question. So, thank you, Gabi. It's a pleasure to have you here, and thank you for all the collaboration. That's a very interesting question, actually. So, the journey of an artist or any professional, I guess, practitioner of something else has so many phases. So there is the first phase where you are really you feel the drive, you want to learn, okay, good, and then you start learning. And then when you learn, you focus on the technical aspect of the work, the tools and all of that. But the tools can also become a problem because they can really overlap the ideas. So many designers are into tools. They talk about tools every day. And then to me, when I talk to designers, I tell them to have interest outside the design field because that's what they bring to their creations, right? So that's why in my presentation, the first page is full of keywords like intuition, geometry, Italian Renaissance, tribal, and all of these things, because that's what I bring to my creation. But in order to express what's in me, I need to master the tools enough not to even worry about them. So I am totally focused on the ideas because I have passed the tool or the technical aspect of the creation. That's the beautiful thing about creating your own style, because it really becomes your um, the it's second nature somehow. But also when you have a technical mastery, the tools can become an extension of you. So yeah, that's the tools and the technicalities are the last of my worries, really. I go straight to the ideas, but there was a time I was into tools. Yeah.
Thank you, Dolph. We still have some minutes. Dr. Zoe, would you like to say something? I know you've been doing a lot of work. I have to acknowledge your contribution on memorization of the 1994 genocide against Tutsi, especially by supporting survivors like Yolande Mukagasana in translating their books into English, because most of her generation wrote in French. And your reviews, of course, brought an additional intellect aspect on, nonfiction, evolution of nonfiction work, especially on survivors' testimony in particular. Thank you so much for that. I wanted to acknowledge you so that everyone knows you, that you are a special person in when we talk about the preservation, the evolution, and the writing on the 1994 genocide against Tutsi in Rwanda. I'm happy that you are going to have a reflection. Barros, if you have any question, please, you are welcome.
Thank you so much. And it's such a pleasure to be here and to join you from London. And Dolph, it's been extraordinary seeing your work and appreciating it, and particularly the sort of the images of it sort of being shown in situations, sort of on stage and so on. And I think my questions really follow on kind of echo with Sandrine's, and I think maybe Sandrine, you've already asked them in some ways, but there were two really. One was about this drawer that you had that had all the basket lids in it that you said was so exciting for you. And I wondered whether you could say a little bit more about what was exciting about it, because I have some ideas and some sense, but what was it about the patterns that you particularly loved and that seemed unusual to you across the years, and perhaps if you could say how that has now changed in contemporary Rwanda and the sort of basketry that we're seeing in contemporary Rwanda. And then a related question, which Sandrine was also sort of talking about, was sort of this connection between the visual arts, between dance, between poetry, between sort of oral storytelling and so on, between pottery, between all these different sort of forms in Rwanda. And I was wondering whether there were any kind of particular symbols you've talked a bit about the circle, whether there are things like this that you see coming up in the visual arts that you then see coming up again in poetry, that you then recognize again in dance, whether there are a few of those that you might mention for us. And apologies, I'm talking from my kitchen because I've been cooking for my kids and they're about to come through the door. So if I turn the video off, that is why. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Zoe. This very, very interesting question. Omar, can you please show the box? Can you present and bring the box back to the image? There are so many leads in that box, and to me, every time I see one lead here, another there, but seeing all of them together was very, very interesting to me, because also something that most people don't know is that the Rwandan weaving was very, very diverse. But from the Belgian era, the most intricate patterns were not allowed to be woven because they would take time, right? So they decided, can you go to the box, Omar? There is slide with a box. Go the previous page, maybe. Yeah, keep going. Yes, thank you. No, go back to the box. Yeah. So the most intricate patterns were not allowed to be woven because they would take time, and in a market where time is becomes the thing, before a weaver would sit on the sunset and weave and make the best, right? There's no deadline, there is no time, it's very personal. Now, in a world where things have to be rushed, so many things got lost in the process. And to me, retrieving this box kind of showed me that there is so many patterns that I didn't know existed, but also that can be seen. And from a geometrical perspective, all these are circular and they are very small. It's like 10 centimeter diameter, and they are very, very small. But if you look at each one, it's a circle, but it's like how many combination of patterns can you have on a circle? It's infinite. Also, the infinite nature of the circle means that it's really infinite because it can hold infinity in its own being. And I don't know, sometimes one weaver would create something, right? Another one will create something, and all this diversity, seeing it together, it's very, very interesting to me. Now look at the one which I have drawn on top. There is one which there are two. So the first one with so many lines, this is me trying to figure out the connection between these elements. Omar, can you zoom a little bit? So I was trying to make, so the way these patterns are built, so they will create visible lines and then they will omit some lines, but these lines are really, which are omitted, is like a puzzle on which you have to solve. So there are so many interests to me as objects, as artifacts, the geometrical perspective, the design aspect, but also in terms of meaning. There is this pattern on the left with some reddish kind of pattern here. So you can see these triangles going in from three different angles. And I saw the same pattern on on a different object, but also in terms of meaning. To me, I think this was very easy to understand because the central pattern is not touched, but all these concentric circles around, they have the triangle, which can represent hostility. Most weapons, most arrows are triangular. You know, it can be a very hostile shape. So you can see it cutting through the three concentric circles, but the one at the center is not touched. And then this also represents that really going inward is the safest you can be. It's like you can have hostility coming from left and right, but if you are centered within yourself, nothing can touch you. So I don't know what else meaning is there to find, but there are so many ways of interpreting the meanings of these patterns. And the other question was about...
Zoe, do you like to repeat the question?
So the other question was about whether there are particular symbolic elements that you see threading through from the visual arts to poetry to dance to and so on. Whether because you were talking about the circle, and I can imagine how the circle is present there in metaphors and in sort of in arm movements and so on. Were there particular gestures or movements or symbols that you see across art forms?
Yes, it's very good that we still have the box here because these patterns you see, you can call it like, these are the same patterns which propagate through different art forms. They propagate through music, they propagate through architecture, they propagate through dance, the way people dance, the formation and everything, but yes. So, and which kind of leads us to kind of tap into what really a pattern is. A pattern is like the most fundamental expression of something. This is like the prime material of everything that we see in so many ways of expression. This is the best way to understand Rwanda. This is the best way to understand Rwanda because the thing about geometry, when you study geometry, you are studying all other topics at once. The rest is translation. The rest is translation. It's really geometry becomes the fundamental for everything.
Thank you, Dolph, for mentioning that very important element of geometry. Zoe will agree with me that the scholarship on Rwanda still have something to talk about. So, Zoe, do you still have any question?
No, thank you. That was really fascinating. Thank you.
Sandrine, I know in your research, you might have something related to this question or that. Of course, some of your work and I know you are interested in much in Rwandan culture. Do you have anything to ask today? Mujenga this time. I know we have two Sandrines.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, I'm not able to be on video, but thank you for the presentation. It was really interesting and great to see all the work. And I like that you use the word that you're a pioneer, because I do think that's really what you're doing, pioneering this kind of work. So I don't really have any question. I'm just glad to be here, and thank you for all the work that you're doing.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Sandrine Mujenga. I know we have 2 minutes after the time we have given ourselves. I know when we started we had the technical issues, but I also respect your time. But before we go, does anyone have one of the last questions that you think you need to ask before we give Dolph time to conclude? Yes, thank you so much for your presentation, Dolph, and everyone who came today. I know it was not easy. Everyone has everything to do, before, it's a weekend, but the fact that you guys were here today, it's very amazing, but also it's very meaningful to Imuru Library, but also to us as well. At Imuru Library, we shall continue to have conversations like this, and we shall invite each one of you to share your ideas, your research, and your reflections or imagination. Because I believe that among everything that is, among different conversations that are happening about the past of Rwanda, the contemporary life in Rwanda, knowledge production is still has a lot of things to discuss. It still needs a lot of ideas that each one of you have throughout your research. We hope then that in the next conversation, in the next Imuru Library Virtual Talks, you will be our guest, but also you will share this conversation to different people. We are going to upload this conversation on our social media, especially on our YouTube, to ensure that this knowledge that Dolph has, that your questions, your reflections, are also shared across various people from various fields. So we can advance knowledge production on the 1994 genocide against Tutsi in Rwanda. So we can advance a conversation on the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda beyond the other perspectives, but this time use the knowledge developed by people like Dolph, use the knowledge from what I would call indigenous knowledge from Rwanda, from Africa, from around the world, to interpret, to what psychologists call to put words on what happened in Rwanda, in order to express exactly what happened and draw reasons that helps Rwandan society, but also the humanity in general. At least this time, to make never again not as just a slogan, but as a real life experience that we hope to achieve, all of us in the future, that your research aim to achieve. Dolph, do you have any conclusion from this conversation? I want to first thank you very much that each time I invite you at Imuru Library, you come, but also particularly for this conversation, the deep knowledge on Rwandan culture, Rwandan heritage, Rwandan art, its evolution, and the life experience of Banyarwanda that you helped to revive and know and use them not only in the art, but also in some sensitive topics like commemoration or kwibuka, remembrance of the 1994 genocide against Tutsi in Rwanda. Dolph.
Thank you, Omar. It was a pleasure having this conversation with you. This is my universe, so it's always a pleasure to share it. Thank you.